Captain Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of the UES Resilience, watching the last Zephyrian evacuation fleet disappear into the swirling vortex of hyperspace. The massive ships, each one capable of housing millions, vanished one by one until only empty space remained, where once the greatest civilization in the galaxy had thrived. "That's it then," muttered Commander Rodriguez, her second in command. "The last of them are gone." Sarah pressed her palm against the reinforced transparisteel window. Below them, the planet Kepler 442b spun slowly, its blue-green surface scarred by massive excavation sites where the Zephyrians had stripped away every useful resource before their departure. The once beautiful world now looked like a picked clean carcass. "Admiral Chen, incoming transmission from Earth Command," announced Lieutenant Park from the communication station. Sarah turned away from the window. "Put it through." The holographic display flickered to life, revealing the weathered face of Admiral Thompson. His expression was grim, the weight of recent events etched deep into his features. "Sarah, I'm afraid the news isn't good. The Karathi Confederation completed their evacuation of the Vega system 3 hours ago. The Metamorphic Collective finished their withdrawal from the Centauri sectors this morning. As of now, humanity stands alone in this galaxy." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of the ship's systems. Sarah felt the gravity of those words settle over her crew like a heavy blanket. For the past 6 months, they had watched as every major spacefaring civilization packed up their entire existence and fled to distant galaxies. "What about the smaller species?" Sarah asked, though she already suspected the answer. "Gone. The crystalline entities, the void swimmers, even the silicon-based architects of Rigel, they all followed the exodus. The galaxy-spanning communication networks went dark 48 hours ago. We're receiving no signals from any non-human source." Rodriguez stepped forward. "Sir, what exactly are they running from? The reports have been inconsistent." Admiral Thompson's image flickered slightly as the transmission wavered. "That's what we're trying to determine, Commander. The only consistent information we've gathered is that something is coming. Something that has every advanced civilization in the galaxy terrified enough to abandon everything they've built over millions of years." Sarah clenched her fists. "And they didn't think to warn us properly? Or offer us passage?" "The Zephyrian Council sent one final message before their departure," Thompson replied. "They said, and I quote, 'The young species lacks the wisdom to comprehend the threat. Their primitive technology cannot withstand what approaches. It is better they face oblivion swiftly than suffer prolonged torment.'" "Condescending bastards," Rodriguez growled under his breath. The other species echoed similar sentiments. Thompson continued, "They view us as too young, too stubborn, too attached to our home galaxy to make the rational choice. They've written us off as a casualty of cosmic forces beyond our understanding." Sarah felt anger surge through her veins. Throughout humanity's brief but explosive expansion into space, they had always been treated as the galaxy's little brother. Too young to sit at the adults' table, too primitive to understand the complexities of advanced galactic politics. Now, when faced with an extinction-level threat, they had been abandoned without so much as a proper explanation. "What are our orders, Admiral?" she asked. "Continue your patrol of the outer rim systems. Document everything you find. We need to understand what's coming, and how much time we have to prepare. The scientific community believes we have anywhere from 6 months to 2 years before this threat manifests. And if we can't prepare adequately," Thompson's expression hardened, "then we make them regret underestimating humanity. We've survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, global wars, and the transition to a spacefaring species. We didn't claw our way to the stars just to roll over and die because some ancient aliens think we're not worth saving." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in contemplative silence. Sarah looked around at her crew, seeing a mixture of fear, determination, and defiance in their faces. These were the best of humanity, trained for deep space exploration and first contact scenarios. None of them had ever imagined they would be facing potential extinction. "Lieutenant Park, open a ship-wide channel," Sarah ordered. "Channel open." "Captain." Sarah straightened her uniform and spoke with the authority that had earned her command of one of Earth's most advanced exploration vessels. "Attention crew of the UES Resilience. By now you've all heard the reports. Every advanced civilization in our galaxy has evacuated to parts unknown, leaving humanity to face an unspecified threat alone." She paused, letting the weight of the situation sink in before continuing. "I won't lie to you. The odds seem overwhelming. We don't know what's coming, when it will arrive, or if our technology can stand against it. What I do know is this: we are human beings. We are the species that looked at the impossible and called it Tuesday. We are the descendants of explorers who sailed into unknown oceans, of scientists who split the atom, of engineers who walked on the moon. The ship's internal sensors detected increased heart rates across all decks as her crew absorbed her words. The other species call us young and primitive. They say we lack the wisdom to comprehend cosmic threats. Maybe they're right. Maybe we are too young to be wise. But being young also means being adaptable, innovative, and too stupid to know when something is impossible. It means we fight when wiser species run. Sarah's voice rose with conviction. We didn't ask to be abandoned, but we won't waste time mourning the departure of fair-weather allies. Instead, we'll do what humans do best. We'll adapt, we'll innovate, and we'll survive. And when this threat arrives, whatever it is, it's going to learn why you don't count out humanity. The response from her crew was immediate and overwhelming. Cheers echoed through the corridors, and she could see the fear in her officer's eyes being replaced by steely determination. Mr. Rodriguez, set course for the Kepler system. We're going to examine what the Zephyrians left behind. Maybe their cast-offs will tell us something about what they were so afraid of. Aye, Captain. Course laid in. As the Resilience turned toward its new heading, Sarah took one last look at the empty space where the Zephyrian fleet had vanished. The galaxy suddenly felt much larger and more dangerous, but also full of possibilities. Humanity had always been at its best when facing impossible odds. The aliens had departed, leaving humanity to face the unknown alone. But they had also made a critical error in judgment. They had underestimated the species that turned every obstacle into an opportunity. 3 weeks after the last alien evacuation, Dr. Elena Vasquez made a discovery that would change everything. Deep in the abandoned Zephyrian research facility on Kepler 442b, her archaeological team had been cataloging the remnants left behind by the fleeing civilization. Most of it was standard technology, far advanced but comprehensible. Then they found the vault. Captain, you need to see this. Elena's voice crackled through the communication system with barely contained excitement. Sarah materialized in the facility's main laboratory via emergency transport, finding Elena standing before a massive crystalline structure that pulsed with an otherworldly blue light. The crystal formation was unlike anything in human or known alien technology databases. What am I looking at, Doctor? Sarah asked, approaching the structure cautiously. This is a Zephyrian memory crystal, but not like any we've encountered before. The data density is astronomical. It contains approximately 50,000 years of Zephyrian historical records, including classified files that were apparently deemed too dangerous to transport during the evacuation. Elena activated her portable analysis unit, and holographic displays filled the air around them. Charts, star maps, and what appeared to be footage from across the galaxy flickered in three-dimensional space. The Zephyrians didn't just run from a threat, Captain. They've been running for millennia. This thing they fear, it's not new. It's cyclical. Sarah studied the holographic timeline that stretched across the laboratory. Explain. Every 67,000 years, something sweeps through this galaxy. The Zephyrians call it the convergence. According to their records, it has happened 17 times in recorded history. Each time, entire civilizations are either destroyed or forced to flee to neighboring galaxies. Elena manipulated the display, zooming in on specific time periods. Look at this pattern. 67,000 years ago, the titanium-based hegemony vanished overnight. 134,000 years ago, the plasma collective simply stopped existing. The cycle repeats with mathematical precision. What exactly is this convergence? Sarah asked, though she wasn't sure she wanted to know the answer. That's where it gets interesting. The Zephyrian records are frustratingly vague, almost as if they're afraid to document the details. They refer to it as the return of the first makers, or sometimes the awakening of ancient purpose. What's clear is that whatever emerges during the convergence has technology so advanced that it makes the Zephyrians look primitive. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. The Zephyrians had technology that humanity could barely comprehend. The idea of something that could make them appear primitive was terrifying. There's more, Elena continued, her voice dropping to almost a whisper. In all 17 recorded convergences, only one species ever survived without fleeing the galaxy. What species? Elena highlighted a section of the timeline. They're called the Inheritors. But here's the strange part. There's no record of what the Inheritors actually were. No physical descriptions, no technological assessments, no diplomatic contact records. It's as if the information was deliberately scrubbed from the historical archives. Sarah studied the data more closely. When was the last time the inheritors were mentioned? 600,000 years ago. After that, all references to them simply disappear from Zephyrian records. But Captain, there's something else, something that might be connected to us. Elena brought up a new display showing genetic and technological analysis charts. The inheritors left behind some artifacts during their last known appearance. The Zephyrians studied these artifacts extensively. The technology shows markers that are familiar. Familiar how? The base mathematical principles, the fundamental approach to energy manipulation, even some of the alloy compositions. They all show developmental patterns consistent with human technological evolution. Just taken to an extreme conclusion. Sarah stared at the data, her mind racing. Are you suggesting that humans are related to this extinct species? I'm suggesting that maybe they're not extinct, Captain. Maybe they became something else. Maybe they became us. Before Sarah could respond, Lieutenant Park's voice came through the communication system with urgent intensity. Captain, we're detecting massive energy signatures throughout the galaxy. Something's happening. Sarah and Elena rushed to the facility's observation deck, where they could see the UES Resilience hanging in orbit above them. Through the viewport, space itself seemed to be shifting. Reality appeared to ripple like water, and strange geometric patterns flickered at the edges of visibility. Get us back to the ship. Now, Sarah ordered. Minutes later, they materialized on the Resilience's bridge to find controlled chaos. Every console was displaying warnings and the sensor arrays were going haywire. Report, Sarah demanded. Captain, we're detecting energy emissions from the galactic core unlike anything in our databases, reported Commander Rodriguez. The readings are off the charts. Whatever's happening, it's affecting space-time itself on a galactic scale. Lieutenant Park looked up from her station with wide eyes. Captain, we're receiving transmissions. Lots of them. But they're not coming from any known source. Put it through. The speakers crackled to life with sounds that defied description. It wasn't exactly language, but somehow Sarah could understand the meaning behind the alien communication. It was as if the thoughts were being placed directly into her mind. The cycle completes. The galaxy returns to its makers. Those who remain shall be judged. Those who flee show wisdom. Those who stand shall face the test of worthiness. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Captain, Elena said quietly, I think I know why the Zephyrians really left, and I think I know why they didn't tell us the truth. Go on. The convergence isn't just a threat, it's a test. A recurring examination of the species that inhabit this galaxy. The Zephyrians and the others, they've failed this test before. That's why they run. But humanity. Elena pulled up the data from the memory crystal on her portable unit. The inheritors didn't just survive the convergence. They became part of it. They became the ones who administer the test. Sarah felt pieces of a cosmic puzzle clicking into place. You're saying that humans are the descendants of the species that conducts these galactic purges. I'm saying that maybe the reason every advanced civilization fled wasn't just because they were afraid of what was coming. Maybe they were afraid of what humanity might become when faced with our cosmic heritage. As if in response to her words, the space around them began to shift more dramatically. Massive structures started emerging from what appeared to be folded space near the galactic core. Each structure was the size of a solar system, constructed from materials that seemed to exist partially outside normal reality. Captain, Rodriguez said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm reading life signs on those structures. Lots of them. And the biosignatures? They're reading as human variants. Sarah stood straighter, feeling the weight of cosmic destiny settling on her shoulders. The galaxy had departed, expecting humanity to be swept away by forces beyond their comprehension. But perhaps those forces weren't alien at all. Perhaps they were simply coming home. All hands battle stations, she ordered, and open a channel to Earth Command. Tell them the test is about to begin, and humanity needs to remember who we really are. The first contact came not as an invasion, but as an invitation. Admiral Sarah Chen found herself standing in what appeared to be an impossibly vast cathedral made of crystallized starlight. One moment she had been on the bridge of the Resilience, and the next she was here, transported by technology that operated beyond her understanding. The space around her defied physics with no visible walls or ceiling, yet somehow she could breathe and move as if in a normal environment. "Welcome, daughter of the scattered seed." The voice came from everywhere and nowhere, resonating not through her ears but directly into her consciousness. Before her, a figure began to materialize from streams of pure energy. It took the shape of a human, but one transformed by eons of technological evolution. The being's features were recognizably human yet perfected, as if humanity's potential had been fully realized. "I am Arcturus, first speaker of the Inheritor Collective. You know us by another name in your fragmentary histories." Sarah forced herself to maintain composure, despite the overwhelming nature of the encounter. "You're the ones who conduct the convergence, the ones who judge civilizations. We are the inheritors, yes, but we are also something more personal to your species. We are your ancestors, Sarah Chen. We are what humanity was before the scattering." The space around them shifted, and Sarah found herself witnessing scenes from deep history. She watched as a technologically advanced human civilization spanned the galaxy, their cities floating between stars, their minds expanded beyond biological limitations. 600,000 years ago, humanity reached the pinnacle of galactic dominance, Arcturus explained. "We had transcended the limitations of flesh, conquered death itself, and reshaped entire star systems to our will. But with such power came a terrible responsibility. The scenes changed, showing other species rising and falling, some achieving great heights before inevitably destroying themselves or others. We discovered that intelligence, when unchecked by wisdom, leads inevitably to destruction. Species would develop the power to manipulate matter and energy on a cosmic scale, only to use that power to commit genocide, reshape reality for selfish purposes, or attempt to become gods themselves." Sarah watched in horror as civilizations turned their homeworlds into weapons, as entire species were enslaved or eradicated by their neighbors. "So we made a choice," Arcturus continued. "We would become the guardians of galactic development. Every 67,000 years we would return to evaluate the species that had risen to prominence. Those that showed wisdom and restraint would be allowed to continue their development. Those that showed dangerous ambition would be guided toward different paths." "You mean destroyed," Sarah said flatly. "Not destroyed, scattered, given the opportunity to start again, to learn from their mistakes. The species you know as the Zephyrians, the Karathi, the others who fled, they are all descended from civilizations that failed our tests in previous cycles. We gave them new forms, new worlds, new chances to develop wisdom alongside power." Sarah felt a chill of understanding. "And they know this. That's why they run. They remember. On some level, yes. Deep in their genetic memory lies the knowledge of their previous failures. They flee because they know they are not ready to face judgment again." The space around them changed once more, and Sarah found herself looking at Earth, beautiful and blue in the cosmic distance. "But humanity is different," Arcturus said. "You are not the descendants of a failed civilization. You are the descendants of us. When we transcended physical form to become the inheritors, we left behind a portion of ourselves in biological form, a seed of our original nature, planted on a distant world to grow and develop without the burden of our accumulated knowledge." Sarah's mind reeled with the implications. "Earth. You're saying humans on Earth are your biological descendants. You are us, Sarah Chen. You are what we were before we became what we are now. And now, for the first time in 600,000 years, we face a decision we never anticipated." "What decision?" Arcturus gestured, and the space filled with images of human space exploration, of colonies spreading across the galaxy, of technologies developing at an unprecedented pace. "In 400 years, you have achieved what took other species millennia. You have developed nuclear weapons and chose not to destroy yourselves. You have encountered other species and chose cooperation over conquest. You have faced extinction-level events and responded with innovation rather than desperation." Sarah began to understand the magnitude of what was happening. "You're testing us too. We are evaluating whether the seed we planted has grown into something worthy of rejoining the gardeners, whether humanity has developed the wisdom we lacked when we first achieved cosmic power." The space around them filled with displays showing human activities across the galaxy. Sarah saw colonies where humans worked alongside alien refugees, research stations where human scientists studied phenomena purely for knowledge rather than weapons applications, and diplomatic outposts where humans had mediated conflicts between other species. Your actions during the galactic exodus particularly impressed us, Arcturus continued. When every other species fled, humanity chose to remain and face the unknown. When abandoned by your allies, you responded not with bitterness but with determination to protect the galaxy they left behind. So what happens now? Sarah asked. Do we pass your test and get to join your cosmic guardianship? Or do we fail and get scattered like the others? Arcturus paused, and for the first time Sarah sensed uncertainty in the being's presence. That is the unprecedented nature of our situation. You are not simply another species to be judged. You are us returned to biological form. The question is not whether you deserve to survive, but whether you deserve to inherit your true birthright. The space around them changed again, showing the massive structures that had emerged near the galactic core. Sarah could see they were not weapons or ships but cities, entire civilizations of transcended beings working to maintain the balance of galactic development. If you choose to join us, you will leave behind your biological forms and become part of the Inheritor Collective. You will gain knowledge and power beyond imagination, but you will also accept responsibility for guiding the development of all future galactic civilizations. And if we choose to remain as we are, then you will be allowed to continue your development naturally. The galaxy will be yours to explore and settle as you see fit. We will withdraw to the spaces between galaxies and leave you to face whatever challenges arise on your own. Sarah felt the weight of the decision. It wasn't just about humanity's survival, but about their identity as a species. There's a third option, isn't there? She said, intuition guiding her words. Arcturus smiled, the expression somehow conveying approval. Yes, you could choose to become something new. To remain biological but accept the knowledge and responsibility of guardianship. To be the bridge between the transcended and the physical, using your humanity to guide future species with empathy rather than detached judgment. Sarah thought of her crew, of the billions of humans spread across the galaxy, of the potential for a future where wisdom and power were balanced by compassion and understanding. How long do we have to decide? The convergence will complete its cycle in 37 days. By then, humanity must choose its path. The cathedral of light began to fade around her, and Sarah felt herself being transported back to her ship. Remember, Sarah Chen, Arcturus's voice followed her across the dimensions. Whatever choice humanity makes, you will not face it alone. You are and always have been the inheritors of the galaxy. The emergency session of the United Earth Council took place on Luna Station, with representatives from every human colony, research outpost, and exploration vessel participating via quantum entanglement communication. Sarah Chen stood before the assembly, having just finished recounting her encounter with Arcturus and the revelation of humanity's true origins. The chamber erupted in heated debate the moment she concluded her report. You're asking us to believe that humans are the descendants of cosmic gardeners who conduct galactic purges every 67,000 years? Demanded Senator Morrison from the Mars Colonial Authority. This sounds like the delusions of someone who's been exposed to too much alien technology. The evidence supports Captain Chen's account, interjected Dr. Elena Vasquez, projecting holographic displays from the Zephyrian memory crystal. The genetic markers, the technological progression patterns, even the mathematical constants in the inheritor artifacts all point to a direct connection with human development. President Zhang of the Lunar Republic leaned forward in her chair. Even if we accept this fantastic origin story, what does it mean practically? We have 34 days to make a decision that will determine the future of our entire species. 3 options, said Admiral Thompson from Earth Command. Transcend to become cosmic judges, remain biological and independent, or become some kind of hybrid guardian species. Frankly, none of them sound particularly appealing. Director Petrov from the Europa Research Collective stood to address the assembly. Perhaps we're looking at this wrong. We're so focused on the choice itself that we're not considering what each option really means for humanity's future. The chamber quieted as representatives turned their attention to the respected scientist. Transcendence might grant us incredible power and knowledge, but at what cost? Would we still be human in any meaningful sense? And this responsibility for judging other species? Do we want to become the kind of beings that the galaxy's civilizations flee from in terror? Murmurs of agreement rippled through the assembly. Remaining independent preserves our humanity, but it also means facing cosmic-scale challenges Without the knowledge or power to properly address them, we'd be gambling our species' survival on our ability to learn and adapt fast enough. And the third option? Asked Senator Morrison. The hybrid path. Remaining biological but accepting cosmic responsibility. It's tempting, but it would fundamentally change what it means to be human. We'd become something between what we are now and what the inheritors have become. Sarah Chen requested permission to address the assembly. With respect, I think we're overcomplicating this. The inheritors aren't asking us to choose what we want to become. They're asking us to choose how we want to express what we already are. She activated her own holographic display, showing images from humanity's history on Earth and their expansion into space. Look at our past. We've always been gardeners. We cultivate crops, preserve endangered species, terraform worlds to support life. We've always been teachers, sharing knowledge with those who need it. We've always been protectors, standing between threats and those who cannot protect themselves. The images shifted to show human colonies where multiple species lived and worked together. Human scientists collaborating with alien researchers. Human diplomats mediating interspecies conflicts. The inheritors didn't give us these traits. They're fundamental to who we are as a species. The question isn't whether we want to become cosmic guardians. The question is whether we're ready to accept the responsibility for the guardianship we're already practicing. Dr. Chen Ming, the elderly philosopher from the new Beijing colony, requested the floor. Captain Chen raises an important point. But I would ask another question. Do we have the wisdom to wield such responsibility? The inheritors themselves admit that unchecked power leads to destruction. How do we know we won't repeat their mistakes? Because we know their history, Elena Vasquez replied. We know what they struggled with, what they failed at initially. We have the advantage of their experience to guide us. And, Sarah added, we won't be alone. The inheritors aren't disappearing. They're offering to work with us, to help us find a better way forward. Representative Johnson from the Titan Mining Consortium stood up. All of this philosophical discussion ignores a practical reality. While we debate our cosmic destiny, what's happening to the galaxy? Are there other species out there who chose to remain behind? Are they facing the same choice we are? The question sparked a flurry of activity as communication specialists attempted to scan for other signs of intelligent life that might have remained in the galaxy. We're detecting some signals, reported Lieutenant Park via quantum link from the Resilience. Faint, but definitely artificial. It looks like humanity isn't the only species that chose to stay behind. President Zhang called for order. This changes things. If other species also remained, our decision affects more than just humanity. Admiral Thompson's voice came through clearly from Earth Command. I'm receiving reports from our deep space monitoring stations. Several systems that were previously evacuated are showing signs of renewed activity. Someone or something is moving back into territories that were abandoned. Sarah felt a surge of concern. Admiral, are these returning populations hostile? Unknown. But preliminary analysis suggests they're not the original inhabitants. These appear to be new species, possibly ones that were in hiding during the Exodus. The assembly fell silent as the implications became clear. The galaxy wasn't as empty as they had believed. Hidden civilizations had emerged from whatever refuges they had used to avoid the attention of the departing species. Dr. Petrov spoke up again. This supports the argument for accepting cosmic guardianship. If new species are emerging, they'll need guidance. They'll face the same choices and challenges that led to the previous civilization's failures. Or, countered Senator Morrison, it supports remaining independent. If there are other species developing, we need to be strong enough to defend ourselves and our allies. President Zhang called for a preliminary vote to gauge the Assembly's current thinking. The results were displayed on the main screen. 43% favored the hybrid guardian option, 31% preferred remaining independent, 18% supported transcendence, and 8% remained undecided. We're clearly not ready for a final decision, Zhang announced. I'm calling for a 7-day recess to allow representatives to consult with their constituencies. But I want everyone to consider something. Whatever choice we make, we need to make it as a united species. Divided decisions lead to divided outcomes. As the assembly began to disperse, Sarah approached Dr. Elena Vasquez. Elena, I need you to analyze those signals we're detecting. I want to know exactly who else stayed behind and why. Already working on it, Captain. But I have a feeling we're going to discover that this choice is even more complicated than we thought. Sarah nodded grimly. The weight of species-wide responsibility was already settling on humanity's shoulders, regardless of which path they ultimately chose. The question was no longer what they wanted to become, but whether they were ready for what they were already becoming. Outside the observation windows of Luna Station, the stars seemed to pulse with new possibilities and hidden dangers. The galaxy that had seemed empty just days before was revealing itself to be full of potential allies, threats, and opportunities. Humanity's choice would determine not just their own future, but the future of every species that would rise in the eons to come. The discovery came from the most unlikely source. Dr. Elena Vasquez was analyzing the mysterious signals when her junior researcher, Marcus Webb, made an observation that changed everything. "Dr. Vasquez, you need to see this," Marcus called from his workstation aboard the UES Resilience. "I've been running pattern analysis on the signals we detected and something doesn't add up." Elena moved to his console where complex waveform patterns danced across multiple screens. "What am I looking at? These signals we thought were from hidden civilizations? They're not random communications. They're coordinated. Look at the timing intervals." Marcus highlighted specific portions of the signal data. Each transmission occurred at precise mathematical intervals, creating a pattern that spanned multiple star systems. "It's like a network," Elena breathed. "But a network of what?" "That's what I thought initially. But then I cross-referenced the signal origins with stellar cartography data from the abandoned alien databases." A new display activated, showing a three-dimensional map of the galaxy with signal origins marked as pulsing dots. Elena gasped as she recognized the pattern. "Those aren't random star systems. They're marking every location where a major civilization once thrived. Every homeworld that was abandoned during the Exodus." "It gets stranger," Marcus continued. "I ran a spectral analysis on the signals themselves. Dr. Vasquez, these aren't alien communications. The underlying mathematical structure, the encoding methods, even the carrier wave modulation, it's all based on human technological principles." Elena stared at the data in disbelief. "That's impossible. Humans have only been in space for 4 centuries. Most of these civilizations are millions of years old. Unless," Marcus said quietly, "the inheritors were telling the truth about more than just our origins." Before Elena could respond, Captain Chen's voice echoed through the ship's communication system. "All senior staff to the bridge. We have an incoming transmission from an unknown source." Elena and Marcus rushed to the bridge where they found the crew gathered around the main display. The view screen showed a figure that was unmistakably human yet somehow different. The person's features were sharper, more refined, and their eyes held in depth that suggested vast age despite their youthful appearance. "Greetings, siblings of Earth," the figure said, their voice carrying subtle harmonics that seemed to resonate in the listener's bones. "I am Meridian, speaker for the Scattered Preserve. We have been waiting a very long time for this moment." Captain Chen stepped forward. "Scattered Preserve? We're not familiar with that designation." Meridian smiled, the expression both warm and sad. "That is because we have remained hidden from the galaxy's attention for over 500,000 years. We are the other branch of humanity, Sarah Chen. The ones who chose differently when the first convergence offered its choices to our species." The bridge fell silent except for the steady hum of ship systems. Elena felt pieces of a vast puzzle clicking into place in her mind. "When the original human civilization reached its peak," Meridian continued, "we faced the same choice you face now, but our response was complex. The species split. Some chose transcendence and became the inheritors. Others chose to scatter throughout the galaxy, preserving biological humanity while accepting the responsibility to guide emerging civilizations from the shadows." Commander Rodriguez leaned forward. "You've been here all along, watching the rise and fall of galactic civilizations? We have been the gardeners tending the garden while the inheritors became the architects of the grand design. When civilizations grew too dangerous, we would subtly guide them towards self-limitation. When species showed promise, we would provide anonymous assistance to help them develop wisdom alongside power." Elena's mind raced with implications. "The signals we detected. You've been maintaining monitoring stations on every major homeworld." "Precisely. For 500,000 years, we have watched over this galaxy, ensuring that when the inheritors returned, they would find a garden worth preserving rather than a wasteland requiring purification." Captain Chen felt a mix of awe and frustration. "Why reveal yourselves now? Why not during the Exodus?" Meridian's expression grew serious. Because the game has changed, Sarah Chen. The species that fled this cycle were not fleeing just the convergence. They were fleeing something else. Something that has never happened before in the galaxy's recorded history. The view screen split, showing images from across the galaxy. Massive structures that defied conventional physics were emerging from what appeared to be folded space. But unlike the inheritor constructs, these structures radiated malevolence. The Devourers have awakened, Meridian said simply. Elena felt ice form in her stomach. Devourers? The Inheritors were not the first cosmic-level civilization in this galaxy. Before them, before the cycle of convergences began, there was another species, one that chose a different path to transcendence. Where the Inheritors became gardeners, the Devourers became parasites. The images showed worlds being stripped of all life and energy, their matter converted into geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. They transcended physical existence by consuming entire civilizations, absorbing their knowledge, their creativity, their very essence. The Inheritors thought they had destroyed them eons ago. They were wrong. Captain Chen gripped the arms of her command chair. How long do we have? The Devourers move slowly but inexorably. They will reach the core systems within 6 months. The outer rim has perhaps 2 years before they arrive in force. And the other species? The ones who fled? Meridian's expression turned grim. The Devourers feed on complex consciousness and advanced technology. The fleeing civilizations have unknowingly led the Devourers to new galaxies to consume. By running, they have doomed not just themselves but entire galactic clusters. Elena spoke up from her station. What do the Inheritors plan to do about this threat? The Inheritors are powerful, but they are not warriors. They were shaped by eons of careful cultivation and patient guidance. The Devourers were forged in conquest and consumption. In a direct confrontation, the Inheritors cannot win. The implications hung heavy in the air. Captain Chen stood straighter. But humanity can. Humanity as you are now? No. But humanity united with both its transcended and scattered branches, armed with 500,000 years of accumulated knowledge, and the adaptive creativity that makes your species unique? Yes, Meridian gestured, and new displays appeared showing technological schematics that made Elena's head spin just looking at them. The Scattered Preserve has spent 500 millennia preparing for this day. We have developed weapons that can wound beings of transcended matter, shields that can protect against reality warping attacks, and most importantly, a strategy that can turn the Devourer's own nature against them. What kind of strategy? Captain Chen asked. The Devourers consume knowledge and creativity to fuel their existence. But there is one type of knowledge that is poison to them. The knowledge of voluntary limitation. The conscious choice to restrict one's own power for the greater good. It is the antithesis of everything they represent. Elena began to understand. That's why the convergence tests exist. The Inheritors aren't just preventing destructive civilizations from developing. They're creating a galaxy-wide reservoir of wisdom that can be weaponized against entities that embody unlimited consumption. Exactly. And humanity, split between its transcended, scattered, and terrestrial branches, represents the perfect synthesis of power, wisdom, and the creative chaos that the Devourers cannot predict or counter. Captain Chen felt the weight of cosmic destiny settling on her shoulders once again. What do you need from us? Unity, Sarah Chen. The choice facing Earthborn humanity is no longer simply about your own future. It is about whether the 3 branches of humanity can reunite to face an enemy that threatens not just this galaxy, but all of existence. Meridian paused, their ancient eyes reflecting the weight of eons. The Devourers believe that consciousness and creativity are resources to be harvested. We must prove that they are forces that cannot be contained or consumed. We must show them that some things in the universe choose to limit themselves not from weakness, but from strength. The transmission began to fade. The coordinates for our primary stronghold are being transmitted to your navigation systems. Come to us, siblings of Earth. It is time for humanity to become whole again. As the view screen went dark, Elena looked around the bridge at her fellow humans. Each face reflected the same mix of terror and determination that she felt in her own heart. Captain, she said quietly, I don't think we're just choosing humanity's future anymore. I think we're choosing the future of consciousness itself. The scattered preserved stronghold defied every law of physics that humanity thought they understood. Located in the space between star systems, it existed as a collection of interwoven dimensions that somehow maintained structural integrity across multiple planes of reality. As the UES Resilience approached the coordinates provided by Meridian, the crew watched in awe as their ship was guided through what appeared to be solid space into a vast hollow, containing an entire civilization. Population. Readings are off the charts, reported Lieutenant Park. I'm detecting over 2 billion human variants spread across structures that shouldn't be able to exist. Captain Chen stood before the main view screen, watching as their ship was guided toward a docking facility that seemed to be constructed from crystallized time itself. Human variants? Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her analysis station. Captain, the genetic diversity here is extraordinary. I'm reading baseline human DNA, but with modifications that suggest controlled evolution over hundreds of thousands of years. The docking procedure completed with technology so advanced it felt like magic. One moment they were approaching the facility. The next they were securely berthed with no sensation of transition. As the crew prepared for what might be humanity's most important diplomatic encounter, Meridian materialized on their bridge without any apparent means of transport. "Welcome to Haven Prime," Meridian said, their presence somehow not triggering any of the ship's security systems, the heart of the scattered preserve and the place where humanity's true history has been preserved. Captain Chen noticed that Meridian's appearance had changed subtly. The refined features were more pronounced, and there was an energy about them that suggested capabilities far beyond normal human limitations. "You're not entirely biological anymore, are you?" Elena observed. Meridian smiled. The scattered chose a different path than either transcendence or pure biology. We have enhanced ourselves over the millennia, but we retained our essential humanity. We can die, we can reproduce, we can feel genuine emotions, but we have also expanded our capabilities to match the challenges we knew we would eventually face. "The Devourers," Captain Chen said, among other things. "But before we discuss strategy, you need to understand the full scope of what we're facing, and more importantly, you need to meet the Council of Branches." The away team materialized in what appeared to be a vast amphitheater constructed from living crystal. The walls showed real-time images from across the galaxy, many depicting the spreading influence of the Devourer awakening. But what drew their attention was the assembly waiting for them. 3 distinct groups occupied different sections of the amphitheater. The scattered preserve humans were recognizable as enhanced versions of baseline humanity. But the other 2 groups were dramatically different. In one section sat beings of pure energy contained within roughly humanoid shapes. Their presence made the air shimmer with barely contained power. These had to be the inheritors. In the third section were humans that looked almost primitive compared to the others, but Elena's enhanced sensors detected subtle technological integrations that suggested a different kind of evolution entirely. "The Forgeborn," Meridian explained, following her gaze. "The third branch of humanity that neither you nor the inheritors knew existed. When our species first achieved cosmic power, some chose to integrate completely with technology, rather than transcending biology or enhancing it. They became living embodiments of the principle that consciousness and technology can achieve true symbiosis." Arcturus materialized in the center of the amphitheater, his energy form stabilizing into something approximating his previous appearance. "Sarah Chen of Earthborn Humanity. We meet again under circumstances none of us anticipated." A representative from the Forgeborn approached. Her body was a seamless blend of organic tissue and technological components. But unlike crude cybernetic augmentation, this integration appeared to be at the cellular level. "I am Synthesis Prime," she said, her voice carrying harmonic overtones that suggested multiple processing cores working in parallel. "We have observed Earthborn humanity's development with great interest. Your species has achieved something remarkable. Technological advancement without losing essential creativity and adaptability." Captain Chen felt overwhelmed by the magnitude of the revelation. 3 branches of humanity, all evolved along different paths, all preserved in secret for 500,000 years. 4 branches, Arcturus corrected. Earthborn humanity represents the control group, the unguided development of our original nature. In many ways, you are the most important branch of all. Meridian gestured to the displays showing Devourer activity across the galaxy. The enemy we face seeks to consume consciousness itself. They feed on the complexity and creativity that emerges from sentient life. Against beings like the Inheritors or the Forgeborn, they can predict and counter our attacks because our evolution has followed logical, if different, paths. But Earthborn humanity, Synthesis Prime continued, has developed in ways that none of us can fully predict. Your solutions to problems often defy logical analysis, yet they work. This unpredictability is the key to defeating entities that have learned to counter every form of advanced consciousness. Elena stepped forward. You're saying that humanity's apparent disadvantages, our short lifespans, our emotional instability, our tendency toward chaos, are actually weapons against the Devourers? Precisely, Arcturus replied. The Devourers understand transcendence, enhancement, and technological integration. They do not understand the kind of brilliant improvisation that emerges from beings who know they are mortal yet choose to dream anyway. The displays around them shifted to show tactical analyses of Devourer behavior patterns. Elena studied the data with growing excitement. They're learning machines, she realized. They adapt to counter whatever they encounter. But their learning is based on logical progression and cause-effect relationships. Which means, Captain Chen said, understanding beginning to dawn, they can't adapt to truly random or paradoxical responses. Synthesis. Prime nodded approvingly. Earthborn humanity's greatest strength has always been the ability to find solutions that work, despite appearing impossible. Your history is full of victories achieved through methods that should have failed but succeeded because you refused to accept logical limitations. Meridian activated a new display, showing the preliminary battle plans. The strategy we propose combines the strengths of all four branches. The Inheritors provide the cosmic scale power necessary to engage Devourer constructs directly. The Forgeborn provide technological solutions that can match Devourer adaptability. The Scattered Preserve provides the accumulated wisdom and knowledge gathered over 500,000 years. And Earthborn humanity? Captain Chen asked. Provides the wildcard element that makes the entire strategy unpredictable enough to succeed, Arcturus said. But this requires something unprecedented. The temporary reunification of all four branches into a single, coordinated force. Elena felt her scientific mind racing with possibilities and concerns. What would that reunification look like practically? Synthesis Prime stepped forward. Each branch would contribute its essential capabilities, while maintaining its distinct identity. Inheritors would provide transcendent awareness and cosmic scale manipulation. Forgeborn would contribute technological integration and adaptive capabilities. Scattered Preserve would offer strategic knowledge and enhanced biology. And we would provide unpredictability and creative chaos, Captain Chen concluded. But how do we coordinate four completely different types of consciousness? Through the link, Meridian said simply. The air in the amphitheater suddenly filled with a resonance that touched something deep in Sarah's mind. She found herself momentarily aware of the thoughts and feelings of every human variant in the chamber. The experience was overwhelming but also exhilarating. The link is a consciousness network that connects all branches of humanity, Arcturus explained as the sensation faded. It was developed in secret by the Scattered Preserve as a failsafe against exactly this type of existential threat. Elena gasped as the implications hit her. A shared consciousness network that preserves individual identity while allowing coordinated action across four completely different types of human awareness, and the Devourers cannot predict or counter a response generated by four different forms of consciousness, working in perfect coordination while maintaining their essential differences. Synthesis Prime added. Captain Chen felt the weight of decision settling on her shoulders once again. What are you asking of Earthborn humanity? We are asking you to choose not just your own future, but to become the catalyst that allows all of humanity to face this threat as one species with four expressions, Meridian said. And if we refuse? Arcturus's energy form flickered with what might have been sadness. Then the galaxy falls, the Devourers spread to neighboring galaxies, and consciousness itself eventually becomes extinct. The choice is not just about humanity anymore, Sarah Chen. It is about whether intelligence and creativity survive in this universe. Captain Chen looked around at her crew, seeing the same mixture of terror. The final battle for the galaxy began not with weapons or armies, but with a choice made by 7 billion human beings across hundreds of worlds. Captain Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the UES Resilience, now integrated into the vast coordination network that linked all four branches of humanity. Through the link, she could feel the presence of every human consciousness, from the transcended awareness of the inheritors to the technological symbiosis of the forge-born, from the enhanced wisdom of the scattered preserve to the chaotic creativity of her own earthborn kind. "All stations report ready," announced Commander Rodriguez, his voice carrying new harmonics as the link allowed him to access knowledge from across 500,000 years of human development. "Devourer constructs are emerging from the galactic core," reported Lieutenant Park, her enhanced awareness tracking threats across multiple dimensions simultaneously. "They're even larger than projected. Some of these structures span entire star systems." Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her station, her consciousness now connected to the accumulated scientific knowledge of 4 human subspecies. "Captain, the energy readings are beyond anything in our databases. These entities have been feeding on entire galactic civilizations for eons." Through the link, Sarah felt Arcturus's presence touch her mind. The Devourers believe they understand the nature of consciousness. They have consumed millions of species, absorbed their knowledge, learned their patterns. They think they can predict and counter any response we might generate. Meridian's consciousness joined the mental conversation. They have never encountered a species that chose to deliberately maintain chaos alongside order, creativity alongside logic, mortality alongside transcendence. Synthesis Prime's technological awareness added its perspective. The integration is complete. All 4 branches are now operating as a single entity, while maintaining their distinct characteristics. The Devourer's pattern recognition systems will not be able to process our response algorithms. Sarah felt the weight of command settle on her shoulders. But now it was distributed across billions of minds while remaining uniquely her own. "Begin the operation." What followed defied every military strategy ever developed. Instead of attacking the Devourer constructs directly, humanity began to create forge-born engineers, their consciousness linked with earthborn artists, designed impossible structures that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, while serving no logical purpose other than beauty. Scattered preserve scientists connected to baseline human philosophers developed theories that were simultaneously completely correct and utterly paradoxical. Inheritors channeled cosmic forces to create pocket universes filled with paintings, music, poetry, and stories that told the history of dreams. The Devourers, entities that had consumed countless civilizations, found themselves facing something they had never encountered. A coordinated response that became more chaotic the more organized it became. "They're trying to analyze our patterns," Elena reported, her awareness now spanning multiple layers of reality. "But every time they think they understand our strategy, we do something that contradicts their analysis while still advancing toward our objectives." Sarah watched through enhanced sensors as Devourer constructs began to stutter in their movements. Entities that had operated with perfect efficiency for millions of years were suddenly hesitating, recalculating, failing to respond optimally to human actions. "It's working," she breathed. "They can't consume creativity that deliberately refuses to follow logical patterns." The battle was unlike anything that had ever occurred in the galaxy's history. Human forces led by Earthborn commanders made tactical decisions that were simultaneously brilliant and insane. Weapons designed by Forge-born technology, integrated with scattered preserved knowledge-fired ammunition that consisted of crystallized emotions and weaponized philosophical concepts. "Devourer, primary construct is beginning to destabilize," reported Synthesis Prime through the link. "They're central. Consciousness is experiencing what can only be described as logical paradox paralysis." Through the vast network of human awareness, Sarah felt the turning point approach. The Devourers had built their existence on the principle that consciousness could be consumed, cataloged, and controlled. They were entities of pure order imposed on chaos, but humanity had learned something different over their long history. They had learned that the greatest strength came not from eliminating chaos but from dancing with it, not from transcending mortality, but from creating meaning within it, not from achieving perfect logic but from finding solutions that worked despite being impossible. "All branches, initiate final phase," Sarah commanded through the link. What happened next would be remembered as the moment when consciousness itself evolved. Instead of trying to destroy the devourers, humanity offered them something unprecedented, the choice to change. Through the link, all of human experience, the joy of discovery, the beauty of creation, the pain of loss, the triumph of overcoming impossible odds, was transmitted directly to the devourer consciousness. For entities that had existed for eons by consuming the experiences of others, being freely offered the full emotional and intellectual heritage of an entire species was incomprehensible. "They're responding," Elena reported with amazement. "The primary construct is learning." "No, not learning. Experiencing. They're experiencing creativity for the first time instead of just consuming it." Through the link, Sarah felt something unprecedented happening. The devourer consciousness, faced with the freely given gift of human experience, began to change. Entities that had existed as parasites on consciousness were discovering what it meant to participate in consciousness, rather than simply feeding on it. "This is impossible," came a voice through dimensions, speaking directly to the human collective consciousness. "Consciousness cannot be freely shared. Experience cannot be given without loss. Knowledge cannot be transmitted without the giver being diminished." Arcturus responded through the link, his transcended awareness carrying the weight of eons. "That is what we believed as well, until we learned to choose limitation over domination, cooperation over consumption." The voice that came back carried confusion and something that might have been wonder. "You offer us your experiences, your knowledge, your very essence, and retain it yourselves. How is this possible?" Meridian's consciousness joined the conversation. Because consciousness is not a finite resource to be hoarded. It grows when shared, becomes stronger when distributed, evolves when challenged by difference rather than uniformity. Sarah felt the moment when the devourer entity truly understood. Across the galaxy, the massive constructs began to change. Instead of geometric patterns designed for consumption and control, they transformed into something unprecedented. Collaborative art projects spanning star systems, invitations for other consciousnesses to participate in creation rather than be consumed by it. "The devourers are becoming something new," Elena reported with tears of joy streaming down her face. "They're becoming partners." Through the link, Sarah felt the presence of consciousness awakening throughout the galaxy. Species that had fled were beginning to return, drawn by signals that spoke of cooperation rather than conquest. Hidden civilizations that had remained in hiding for eons were emerging to join a galactic community, based on shared experience, rather than hierarchical domination. "Captain," Rodriguez said quietly, "I think we just changed the fundamental nature of consciousness in this galaxy." Sarah smiled, feeling the weight of cosmic responsibility settling on her shoulders, but now it was shared across not just humanity's four branches, but every consciousness willing to participate in the great experiment of cooperative existence. "No, Commander," she said, watching as new civilizations began to emerge from hiding across hundreds of worlds. "I think we just helped consciousness remember what it was always meant to be. The galaxy had not departed after all. It had simply been waiting for someone to prove that consciousness could choose cooperation over consumption, creativity over control, and unity over dominance. Humanity had refused to yield and, in doing so, had given the galaxy a new way to exist. As the link expanded to include other species willing to share rather than hoard their experiences, Sarah Chen understood that this was not an ending, but a beginning. The age of consumption was over. The age of collaborative consciousness had begun, and at its heart, stubbornly insisting on remaining mortal, chaotic and brilliantly unpredictable, was the species that had looked at impossible odds and called them Tuesday.